Welcome back to Meet at the Well, a space for the weary, the misfits, and those living in the hard middle. Too sacred for the secular, too secular for the sacred. Today's conversation is the soil my work has been growing in. I'm sitting here with Kimberly Phinney, professor, poet, counselor, founder of The Way Back to Ourselves, and someone whose work helped give my own writing a home. Kimberly, you're currently writing a book on art, faith, and belonging with Baker Books. You shepherd a creative community that centers beauty, honesty, and deep formation. And you're someone I trust, not only as a writer, but as a dear friend and my forever English professor. I'm grateful for you. Welcome to Meet at the Well.
Oh, I love you, friend. Of all the things that you were listing, my most important job in your life is to be your friend. And so I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy you said yes. I wanted to begin with the opening of your recent essay. This essay is shaking mountains. It's doing what you do best, which is writing from this tender place, the hard, the difficult, and the things that sometimes we overlook or don't fully give the attention that it needs. And so you write about lying on the cold wooden floor, exhausted, burned out, asking God, help me know you're nearby. Show me something. Let me know thin spaces. And then you hear how good it is to be a border walker. Kimberly, can you take us back to that moment? What did it feel like in your body? What did that phrase stir in you?
So, to just give it a tiny bit of context. So this is at the bedrock of what we do at The Way Back to Ourselves. It's what started in my teaching career. It's things that the Lord's really been revealing to me for many, many years in different forms and shapes. And then to speed it up till this week, that prayer happened and I should have been going to sleep. And I ended up I was burning with things to say that was just from the Holy Spirit, given all the tensions that are going on, not just in the United States, but in the world, and just how social media is heightening things to existential crisis. I think we're all carrying it. So on Substack, I knew I was going to be having a post coming up soon. And this little download from God derailed all that. And then I think I was messaging a certain friend named Mariana, who has a certain podcast, Meet at the Well. Yes, at probably 1:30 a.m. I know. And I was like, don't hate me, but please read this essay. Help me look at it. And it ended up the past few days have been a beautiful marination between you and me and the same story that God's been downloading. And so I wrote this essay, and then Mariana came beside me to sharpen it and to even add some commentary. So she is my special guest in that essay, and it's on Substack. It's called Let's Talk About Borders. And then it talks about how we can't not answer the call in this cultural moment of being a border walker as a Christian. We can't. We have to do it. So that's the context. Now, going back to what you were saying, what that felt like being on the floor, I just find it crazy that when you do slow down and when you humble yourself and you really get close to the ground, the humus, the garden, as simple as laying on the floor, in your bedroom at midnight, and you're just looking up and you just ask the Lord to show up, He will. And, that heartbeat of the border walker thing obviously is something that the Lord has been reminding me of. So in my grief about all these things that have been going on and seeing the ripple effect of, like, again, on that larger scale, but also how intimate it is. I really loathe politics, but we also can't, be insulated and naive to think that it doesn't have this micro level, impact on a personal and intimate basis in people's homes and lives. So God just reminded me again that the thin space is the border walking.
I love how you name that as something ancient in your essay, that God's people have always been exiles,
Mm-hmm.
sojourners in between people, and that Jesus
Mm-hmm.
himself had no place to lay his head. How would you describe border walking in your own words, Kimberly? What does it look like in real embodied life, not just conceptually, but
Mm-hmm.
relationally?
Yeah, and so I can't even take full credit for what you just talked about because that was a dialogue between the two of us as you were helping me develop how I said Jesus was the OG border walker, and you were like,
Yes, I
slow
love
down, let's camp
that.
out there, because it helped
Mhm.
me unpack what I was thinking and feeling that I didn't make on the page. So to
Right.
writers out there, this is why we need to be in community, because we absolutely sharpen each other. So
Amen.
I just wanted to give credit where credit's due, and that's to you. But what that looks like. So for context, whether people are in the arts community or not, listening, because I know this is a gracious space that you've set. We want seekers, we want doubters, we want believers, we want the exile to come to this table. So a border walker is something that is in the air right now in a lot of the art and faith movements. So it's the idea that artists, particularly, not that we're the only ones, are
Mhm.
called to borderlands, are called to the margins, to build bridges, to commune, because art is transcendent, and particularly good art. Unfortunately, bad art is too. I mean, hello, propaganda. But good art transcends time, place, people. I mean, that's why people flock to the Louvre, right? And they'll wait an entire day and a very long claustrophobic line to see
Tell me about it.
to see,
So true.
you know,
Yeah.
a very particular picture of the Mona Lisa, right?
Right.
And so art is super transcendent that way. And that's why the artist is, what's the word? The provocateur, right? In the
Yeah.
French, we provoke. And that's something that can, like we talked about, tip over apple carts, ruffle feathers. It can cause offense. But at the same time, sometimes we need to be nudged and woken up.
I love that.
I think of the commencement speech that David Foster Wallace gave at Kent University. And he talks
Mm.
about this is water. And he tells a little anecdote about a fish that says, an older fish to a younger fish, hey, how's the water? And the other fish goes, what the hell is water? Right? And
I love it.
the anecdote is there to make us realize that we don't even know what we're swimming in, to even question it. Like, we don't even know the reality that is pumping through our lungs. And so we need the artist to disrupt. So that's what border walkers do. Mako Fujimura has talked about it. Stephen Roach of The Breath and the Clay has talked about it. And then most recently, Winfield Bevins has talked about it in his book, How Beauty Will Save the World. Now, what we did in our essay, though, is we were like, okay, let's start from that framework, but let's move into what that looks like in a greater socio-political sphere.
And I love where that went.
Yes.
Because you're honest in that space. That border walking sounds beautiful until it gets applied to real life.
And then it gets very gritty.
Absolutely. Immigration, politics, race,
Mm-hmm.
loving enemies,
Mm-hmm.
crossing the lines.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Border walking becomes a concept that draws ire out of people, not love.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk, Kimberly, a little bit about the cost of living in that space? What has it cost you personally, or even what has surprised you in regards to that?
Yeah. So it's actually like your catchphrase that you have for your Substack that you have overlapped with your podcast is too secular for the sacred and too sacred for the secular. I would point to that first because I think what has gotten me into trouble, and you, we are loving troublemakers.
Absolutely.
Is that depending on the people group we're in, because we don't fall into a particular, say, echo chamber or monolith, maybe, of a certain political persuasion or ideology, when we are curious and we ask questions, or we don't color within the lines, that is really upsetting to a lot of people because we are tribal creatures. We fall easily into patterns and habits that don't require a lot sometimes of critical thinking. But that's being human. Like, I'm not saying that at all to put down someone, because we all have our blind spots. But again, going back to being the border walker, that's the point, is we're there to disrupt, to ask the hard questions. Someone had commented on our essay, if you're not upsetting people and if you're falling into one clean box as a Christian, then there is something wrong. And I think that that is very true, right? So when we look at political parties, if we are just falling into complete agreement with one or the other, there is something wrong. What I love to say too, when I would talk to my students about it, because they would want to know what I was. I was like, it doesn't matter what I am. You should know what you are and why.
I'm sure that was so frustrating.
Yes, it was. And but more importantly, you should know why you're not one of them as well. Exactly. And so I would say, do you even agree with can you tell me anyone in your life that you completely agree with all the time, unthinking? They get your rubber stamp endorsement on everything. And they would all go, no, of course not. And I'm like, exactly. Then why do we view political parties that way? Right? Like, the only person that should be getting our rubber stamp or, our complete obedience is Christ.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you, in the essay, you bring up Imago Dei as a litmus test.
Yes.
There's one line that stopped me, and it was when you said, does blank respect the Imago Dei, right?
Right.
And you describe this as a basic question that's guiding your engagement. So how did that question become central for you?
Oh, 100% teaching.
I had a feeling. Yeah.
100%. And I would love to say that I just traipsed in and I just had that wonderful mature theology. No, I fell on my face a bazillion times.
Trenches.
Yes. In the trenches. Making assumptions and being shown again and again how foolish I was. Putting up my walls because something felt different or foreign to me at first. I mean, I started teaching when I was 22. And then realizing, oh my goodness, like, I have to de-center myself.
Oof. Oh, that's so good.
It is really good. And
as a border walker, I 100% know that is key.
Yes.
Key. I mean, you brought that. That's just so beautiful that you brought that. And that teaching gave you the gift of understanding that.
Absolutely.
Oof, so good.
And then you start to just think, okay, in these 50 minutes, I've got 25, 30 kids relying on me. And if I really want to be a master teacher, and if I'm a Christ follower and I actually want to embody little Christian and walk out the personhood of Christ as my model, then it's not about picking favorites. It's not about my ego. It's not about what's easy. It's like, how do I maximize impact for all of these kids? And I can't unthink these experiences now. It's like, once you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And so
the way you approach conversations,
yes,
disagreements, cultural engagement,
yes,
it completely makes sense.
And especially, you and I are Tampa natives, and we are an extremely diverse city, and we run in very diverse crowds. And so there's a gift in that, but there's also a tension, because you're always being reminded, like, to decenter yourself, to consider other perspectives, to consider other lived experiences, other cultures, other languages, other norms.
To consider others. And it's just, we could probably have a whole podcast episode on that alone. I remember when we went and had our road trip together.
Yes.
To the mountains.
Makers and mystics, baby.
Yeah. And I was talking to my children, and then I was talking to professionals, and you mentioned, you're like, I have seen you code switch these like different, like, and I felt so seen in that moment that, you were so close to know that I consider who I'm speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And because English is my second language, and I've learned how to navigate different spaces, right? And so, but the fact that you were able to see me and to say, and to tell me, I love that you're able to kind of just consider everyone in the different spaces.
Mm-hmm.
It stuck with me, Kimberly. I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
ever seen it as
Beautiful.
a way of showing up, right? As beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I thought it was
Everyone
beautiful.
everybody brings it as, oh, it's a problem, or but it's not. It's a way of showing up for others, and it's my way of showing up for others,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think as a teacher, your way for showing up for others, right, is, I think that shows us how we can decenter ourselves and consider,
Yes.
what does the other person need in this engagement, in this
Mm-hmm.
situation. And I don't know, I think that's something that is not often taught.
Right.
It's
And
something you either learn it in the throes or,
and it's super countercultural to the influencer, narcissistic, performative society that we're in. Because even really good people, decent people, Christian people, educated people have fallen into the trap of hot takes. So I'm going to go a little bit English professor here. The dialectic itself is tarnished, and because it is done in isolation, it's decontextualized, it's disembodied. Also, thinking about Neil Postman, a lot of other deep cultural critics and thinkers, they talk about how the medium is the message, which means that for such deep theological, cultural conversations that really need to be about being at the table and breaking bread, to have these conversations, because they're hurtful, complex, nuanced, in no way is a hot take. And I know what I'm saying is probably going to ruffle. Here I am. Hi, it's Kimberly. I'm ruffling feathers again. And that's why you and I were even talking about restraint and how hard it is. Hot takes, just by their nature, are not, I think that they're anti-culture. They're anti-community. I have not yet seen, and hey, listeners, write in and tell me if I'm wrong, someone give a hot take and then someone go, oh, I should come to Christ. Or someone give a hot take and go, oh, I'm changing my mind. Or I feel so loved and seen.
Absolutely. Or even see the nuance.
Right.
In a situation or in a topic. Absolutely. And I think that this is a perfect place where I wanted to take a moment to thank you. Because when you gave me the honor of reading your essay and saw you weaving in, when I gave you feedback, the theological work on John 4, which we've talked extensively on, I truly felt so honored, because as you are aware, last year at Cultivate, I had the gift of teaching those 2 breakout sessions that focused on border crossing grace, gospel for the outsider, and then breaking barriers, not people, a hopeful way forward, both framed through the story of our girl, our woman at the well. There's these few simple but costly commitments. And you and I have talked a lot about this space, right? And that is dignity across differences, right? Truth told tenderly, which we both just had a conversation with Tanner Olson regarding the tender way that he approaches these hard topics, right? And
so good.
Curiosity instead of control, which again, you've created such a welcoming space in that regard, and stories that are sacred and hope rooted, not in systems or buildings, but in the living temple, which is Jesus himself. And the reason I'm bringing this up at this point is because for me, that is the breathing ground for this third way in this polarized world, a place to meet across man-made divides, just like Jesus did at the well. And I love how you name border walking, and then you connect it directly to the story.
Yes.
You write about Jesus beginning his public ministry by crossing these gendered, ethnic, religious, social boundaries. And then scripture tells us it is his longest recorded conversation with any single individual. So why do you think the woman at the well matters so much for this moment right now?
Yeah. Oh, and also too, again, I have to give kudos back to you, because we hit record today and people will hear it when you all get it out. But These are conversations that you and I have been having now for a couple of years.
Absolutely.
So, and we hope to write a book together on it. Yeah. What is so wild, dear listeners, is that Mariana and I met through the Way Back to Ourselves on Instagram. Okay. A few years ago. And we then found out that we lived in each other's backyards. So in Tampa. And that we both went to undergrad at USF at different times and with very similar degrees with like the literature English. And then what's even more wild is at the same time that the Lord was moving with her about this woman at the well concept, I was also using it as the framework for the Way Back to Ourselves. And if you go way back onto our blog at the beginning, I called it a woman at the well experience.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that wild? And
it's beautiful.
And it's like God has been bending both of our ears, and he knew we were going to be in each other's backyard, and he knew that these things were going to be happening.
Amen.
So it's wild.
Amen.
So,
I agree.
So, why is it so important right now? I recently read, and this is something that's been taught in many ways, but the idea of to be a Christian is to be a little Christian. It's to be an apprentice of Jesus, right? John Mark Comer, in his book, Practicing the Way, makes this very clear, and I quoted it, to follow Jesus is to become his apprentice. It's to organize your entire life around 3 driving goals. Be with Jesus, become like him, and do as he did. So I took that framework, and then everything that we've been studying, and I've been studying with the woman at the well, and I wanted to do a strict exegesis, but without bringing in all of the poor teaching, different, like all the ways I've been told the woman at the well story over my life, which really sadly, I have been told that she was lost, that she was a whore, a sinner, and that Jesus just came to save her. And listen, Jesus can do whatever he wants, and he is perfect and good, and he did interface with many people caught in sin and called them away from it, all of that. But to treat the woman at the well exchange like a spiritual transaction is to miss the great depth. Of course, I'm a lay theologian and you're in seminary, and there's probably so much more on this, but these are some of the things that we got to, is that he intentionally seeks out the marginalized.
Yep.
So why is this so important today? That's the first one. And we want to do as he did.
Absolutely.
It says that he had to go to Samaria. And he's God. He knows why he needed to go to Samaria. He knows that she was going to be there. And she was going to be receptive. And through her evangelism, many would be saved to Christ.
I love when you said receptive, because in John 3, Nicodemus was not. And that is something that a lot of people, both in scholars and lay theologians, miss. And I love that you brought up the way she was viewed.
Being stigmatized, or a woman of ill repute type of,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that I've read from other scholars that also talk about that it was infertility issues, that she couldn't bear children. And so husbands would leave her. There's so many different theories as to why she was stigmatized. But I love that you focused on the conversation. And I think that you're right. So much is missed from the conversation in regards to Jesus being the living temple and his revealing of who he is to her and having this really deep theological conversation with her. I think that he didn't view her as a problem to fix, as we mentioned, but as a person to encounter. And my question then would be, what do you see him modeling about how transformation actually happens when we meet each other in that regard?
Right. And because in encounter that is safe and love and grace is offered, then in turn you earn the right or the opportunity to minister. Think about Christ, the Son of God, absolute perfection. He couldn't show up however he pleased, but he chose to show up in dignity, in grace, in conversation, in belonging. And when he was offering these things as a border walker, that softens engagement, allows, because of curiosity. Now, of course, he knows these things, but he is curious for her sake.
And he was vulnerable for her
Yes.
sake. He was actually thirsty. He wasn't acting like he was
Mm-hmm.
thirsty. He wasn't playing around or
Mm-hmm.
lying to her. That is
In
not the
his
character of
character.
God.
No.
Right. He was actually vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, I think he's displaying an equalness. And I know that this, like you said, will get us in trouble. But in that regard, that's where safety comes in. And I think that what I got from that is if I can be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and it costs me vulnerability, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not comfortable, but someone will feel safe enough to have a dialogue with me. And in that way, I can show them his love.
Right.
Then I think the cost is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, when I think about you and the way back to ourselves, I do see that mirrored. It was the place that found a
Mm-hmm.
home for, it was where my words
Me
found a
too.
home. And, and so to me, you've built something more than just a journal or a platform. It has felt to me as a refuge.
Mm-hmm.
It shows me how a woman at the well has been threaded, and this John 4 theology has been
Mm-hmm.
threaded through your work and through our work, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not done.
And all of that is a testament to what God is doing and is a testament to community. Because as I've
Amen.
said so many times, is if there wasn't this communal aspect, I mean, we are together the ethos of the community. Otherwise, I'd be talking at a wall. That's the
Absolutely.
beauty of it. And even with my illness, how many times have you all come beside me and you've lent me your strength physically, and what we do. And I wouldn't want it any other way, to be honest, because that is literally, there's the church, the capital C church that's laid out in Acts, but the body is the church. And where two or more are gathered, so is he there also.
Absolutely.
And so I'm interested too, and this is something that gets me in trouble, is in church making wherever we can go. Wherever you can put out a table, gather many, extend belonging. And in that act, you might get the opportunity to do deep gospel work. I never assume, because I'm a Christian, I have the right to shove a tract in someone's hand or condemn them or provide a hot take to shame, like we talked about earlier, or to act like, I'm holier than thou. That stuff personally, troubles my spirit. And, but that's me. I'm not saying that people who go out and shove a tract in someone's hand or just cold call and stuff like that can't do those things. But for me, I feel like that's reverse order. When I look at John 4, and I'm not like making this up according to Kimberly's bent, but when I see John 4, Christ is first offering himself. He's offering humility. He's offering belonging, listening, compassion. And in the offering of himself, he's able to engage and then do the holiest work that he's been called to do, which is to call people to himself.
He absorbs the cost.
Yes.
He doesn't put the cost on her. And I think that is something we have to wrestle with as followers of Christ. I thank you for tying this together. I think it's so important. And I really do hope we get to put some of this in writing. And talking about writing and books, you're currently writing a book on art, faith, and belonging.
Yes. More of what we've been talking about.
And so I'd love to ask you, and of course, whatever you can share, because at this time you're with Baker Books. And so what question is your book trying to answer? Can you?
Yeah. So in question form, like how can we bring the exiled Christian artists back home and to re-engage them? And that is a two-way street. Like there's a responsibility of the Christian artist and there's a responsibility of the church with a capital C. And together we have a responsibility to culture and to community. And right now, what I can share is that the working title is the New Christian Renaissance. And so the idea is, and it's definitely something that's palpable. People are feeling it in this age, which is becoming very machine, very anti-human, anti-God, anti-truth, very disembodied. I think that a lot of Christians, and it's so heartening especially people younger than us, because you and I are like, we're like the old girls in the game, because there's a lot of young 20-somethings and 30-somethings that are coming up that are excited and they're starting to engage and create art. As
Absolutely.
Christians, that is having one foot in the so-called sacred and one in the so-called secular, which is a false duality, right? Like,
Man-made lines.
yeah, exactly. This
Call them
side,
the man-made
yeah,
lines.
this enlightenment dualism that separates it, when everything is God's, right? And everything is spiritual. And unfortunately, that can be good, spiritual, or bad. But that is all of God's concern. And he put us in bodies. He came as one. And so to pretend that the body doesn't exist and our embodied experiences don't exist, like they say, brains on sticks, from enlightenment thinking, that misses the mark, right? And so between that, which is an enlightenment thinking that we've inherited, along with some of our more Puritan roots after the Reformation, because we separated from the Catholic Church, the Church of England, and with that, we threw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to arts and icons and these beautiful churches. Like, all of it had become tainted to some of these early forefathers of the what became the evangelical faith, Protestantism. You go back and you look at that history, which, we've now inherited. You can understand why there is such a divide today between the arts and the artist and the Christian church, because the Puritans were really terrified of all of that. They thought it was violating, thou shalt not have any other gods before me or make any graven images. So they made sure that their churches were pure and white and clean, and that,
I find that so interesting.
yeah, and there was no icons, very, very stark for purity's sake, right? The
Right.
Puritan. And then they did dignify work. Okay, so, we don't want to paint it all bad. The Puritans loved the idea that in all the good work that we do it as if we do it unto God. So they were very faithful in that regard. But art was this very questionable practice in space. Right. And so we've kind of inherited that. And again, we were talking about the beginning as artists, you and I. There's a provocation there because we're the canary in the coal mine. We're the third eye, not literally, because we're not like we're Christians, but this idea of we see things differently. We ask hard questions. We, like, for instance, in Bible study, I have not even meant to upset people by asking questions that to me felt very obvious, like the woman at the well, like, hey, Christ inverted gender norms. That's really interesting. What do you think that means?
And all of a sudden,
and that is, you just threw a little dynamite into that room. But then again, those questions really matter because they help us see more clearly. Absolutely. Right? It's part of that dialectic that if you and I engage in good faith, right back to Rome and what was happening, in the schools in Athens, again, they were flawed people, but I think the practice itself helps to reveal truth.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think that, and I've learned this, I'm sure that we're both parents, so we've learned it with our kids, that the question my son brings to me, usually it's the rough draft for the question he actually needs to ask.
Oh, I love that.
Many years ago, and I don't know who I heard this from, that the Bible is not a book of answers, it's a book of questions for your answers. And I relate that to parenting. And I think that in art and in these spaces that are safe spaces for curiosity and exploration and questioning, we're able to get to the right question, or at least a lot closer to the right questions than we were initially. And I think that's something that I have always appreciated about art and about writing, because your rough draft is never.
Yeah. And, great art is a form of culture care. I just came across it today that, like, I believe it was Claude Monet was really grieved after the end of World War I. And he really was like, what am I even doing? Like, sitting here and studying art and shadows and trying to make this silly painting. you
while
know,
there's violence
yes,
and,
that, the silent
yeah.
generation, the lost generation, like Gertrude Stein said, what am I supposed to do with that? Well, now that beautiful painting hangs as a memorial, and
Right.
it's a representation of beauty and resilience.
Right.
And so if he didn't dare to do that, we wouldn't have these Ebenezers. We wouldn't have these keepsakes. And so if God can do that, even in those contexts, like through common grace, what can he do with an engaged Christian artist community today?
Absolutely.
Right? We have
Absolutely.
people who are starving. And what's really interesting today is we're consuming more media and more art, quote unquote, than we ever have before in the history of time. And yet, by and large, Christian artists have vacated those spaces, whether they were shamed or told not to, or they were afraid to, or they weren't supported. There wasn't a patronage to support it. And so now there's a vacuum, and in that vacuum, you have bad art, you have questionable art, you have some good art, because again, back to common grace, there's all kinds of things that you can get, that whole chew and spit thing where, like, I can take in, say, a secular song, like, we don't want to be puritanical about things because we want to be culturally conscious so we can engage, like Francis Schaeffer talks about. But I can chew and spit, so I can take in something that is a cultural phenomenon, and I can find the good in it. And that good, I could speak into as an artist or someone providing culture care to bridge in conversation. And so we need that.
As you were saying that, and I might be taking this in a whole different direction, but if we are too offended as Christians and we leave the table.
Right. So good.
I mean, as you were talking, you know what I remembered? I wrote an essay a couple of weeks ago on the adulterous woman that is going to be stoned. And there was something in my research that I discovered. You know how everyone drops a stone and leaves? And when Jesus gets up again, they're gone. So there was a theological explanation that I'd never heard before. And it was that instead of staying, so Jesus could speak to them the way he spoke to her and said, go and sin no more. They didn't stick around for him to say that to them too. And again, I'm probably not doing the best theological exploration on the fly right now with it. I'd have to have like my notes and all that. But why I'm bringing up that story is because if we are so caught up in the offense that the secular world is putting on us because it's so bad, and you're not even at the table to bring that quote unquote good art,
right,
or to have those conversations so that someone on the other side can create good art, then what are you doing?
Yes. I mean, how are you going to be the salt and light? Be the city on the hill and all the other things.
Are we the salt?
if you're
at the table,
if you're a doomsdayer and you're hiding in your house with the tinfoil hat,
Oh, Kimberly, I really love that our conversation led this because I had not thought of it like that before. But we are called to be in the world, not of it, but in it.
Right.
In it. And we have to absorb the cost that comes with that because he did.
Right.
And he is our living water, living temple. He is, Holy Spirit is with us. Right?
Yeah.
And so,
and Jesus, look at how he moved and dealt and taught outside of systems by showing up to tables that many people would call questionable. But because his presence was there, he saved many and he changed the world.
Absolutely. And you referenced Stephen Roach, and I will mess up that name.
Mako Fujimura. Yeah.
Yeah. And Bevins,
yes.
Right? And how art as reorientation, right?
Yes.
As artists, we need to be in these spaces so we can help reorient. Because when we come together, that's when we can bring this imagination, this bridge, this bridge that we can I've never, like you said about the essay, how different would our words be if we hadn't come together and wrestled?
Amen.
And right. And so there's beauty in community and in being, an essay means an attempt, right?
I love that. Yes. Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah. And I've also heard theology is literally walking in the dark, trying to find out, there's a scripture that says, for now, we
Yes,
see,
that's one of my favorites.
It's in
Corinthians. Through the mirror dimly, basically.
Yes.
And in part, And yet one day we will see him face to face and we will know.
Oh, Kimberly, it's so
By the
beautiful.
way, I'm so glad. See, this is you and me here. Like
Yeah.
I joke, God took out his little template and said, I'm going to make a Mariana. And then a few years later, he's like, I like that. I'm going to take that out again. Where's that template? I'm going to make a Kimberly. But I love to quote that one to my husband too, as a reminder to have posture as a human, to be extremely humble and curious and allow yourself to live in wonder, because it's literally telling us you do not know. I can only give you so little of me, which is a lot, but it's so little of what is whole, because as a simple human being in the form you are right now, this is as much as you can handle. And what an invitation though. And that is like why I think artists love that one, because that we can feel it when we look out at God's universe, when we are interfacing with humanity, when we're getting hit by the creativity Mack truck. We're, like you said, we're growing. We're groping in the dark, trying to make sense of this like beautiful, majestic, mysterious, wondrous, mystical God that we've got the Bible and we've got some details. Yep. So because like Francis Schaeffer said, there is a God and he has made himself known. God is not silent. Praise the Lord.
He is not silent. And we don't have to escape from this world. We get to reorient through our art, through our creativity, through our voices, so that the world could be more truthful.
Right.
In a time when truth is really hard to find.
Right.
When dehumanization is at an all-time high.
Oh, yes.
And the most human thing to do is create. That is when we are in Imago Dei. I love this conversation, Kimberly. I'm going to ask you one last question, and it's what I ask everyone at Meet at the Well. And the question is, what is a book that you return to again and again, or a book that you wish you could read for the first time all over?
Probably. Are we talking theologically?
It could be any. It
Okay.
could be for fun.
Because I'm an English professor too. Am I allowed? Can I give a Jesus answer and then a lit answer?
Go for
Okay.
it. Actually, I love that.
Okay. Okay. So the first one is going to be Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. I know he's the OG, and I feel like it's super generic that we all sit around and quote him. But then you read him, and you're like, that's why everybody quotes C.S. Lewis. Because,
absolutely.
it's kind of like him, and there's a few others like Tim Keller, G.K. Chesterton. Like, there's just a few that you're just like, okay, I know why everybody talks about them. But Mere Christianity came to me in my late 20s when my intellect was getting in the way of my faith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was really going through a very difficult time. I was having a lot of doubts. And reading and coming across that in Bible study, in my Bible study group at my sweet little Methodist church back then, called Ep.2, and it was for the 20-something crowd. We were all like the hipsters, and I just became reacquainted with the God of the universe in a brand new way. And, I knew of C.S. Lewis. I had read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe a bazillion times. I have heard him quoted in church my whole life. Like, I super revered him, but that was like a whole new experience. And to see an Oxford Don, like just the most intelligent, thoughtful man of another time, knowing how he came to Christ as a devout atheist and his story with Tolkien and all of that, I was just, and I'm no C.S. Lewis, but I was like, this is it. And I remember one quote said, which spoke to my heart and pierced me, was that if we could figure out God, then he would be no God at all. Oh. And at least like a God not worth worshiping. And that stopped me in my tracks because I was trying to figure everything out. And God is unfigureoutable, And it invited me into mystery. And he spoke my language. So I credit him and then Tim Keller, because Tim Keller's like his baby. He studied C.S. Lewis and his wife pen palled with him. And just, so those two men came along at the right time and just, broke me open for the Lord and helped me get through that dark night of the soul. And then the other one is probably going to be The Great Gatsby. If anybody knows me, they know my borderline, or it's not even borderline, my obsession with that book.
I've seen your annotated book. I've seen it over the years.
Yes. And we did our Gatsby cohort not long ago. But as you know, that book is so much more than just a love triangle. It has
layers on layers.
And we talked about it being an ecclesiastical text. It is literally the perfect example of common grace. Because, obviously F. Scott Fitzgerald was maybe a defunct Catholic. He really struggled with his faith. He struggled with addiction, fame, a whole host of things. And he died a tragic death, much like Gatsby did. Right. But there is such a meditation on the book of Ecclesiastes and the idea of us chasing after the wind. And for him, it was the green light. And the green light can be anything for all of us, whether it's somebody you can never have, or the wealth you can never have, or the physique you can never have, or, the fame, whatever it is that you're making a god. And it's so deep as far as how it captures human yearning. And it reminds us, because it is a cautionary tale, it's a tragic story of what man looks like without God at the center of his life.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah, and I've been able to teach that to public school kids, and then of course in Christian classes. And in public school, I couldn't, preach the gospel. And in private school, I could, because it was a Christian school. But I still could show people truth and light. And I think that, again, to the point of art, that right there is a perfect example as how you can take something that people would call not Christian art, and it can absolutely be used to move people toward the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. And I think, those were amazing picks. Thank
you.
For me, I think.
Yeah, what about you?
I haven't read Mere Christianity yet, and I have 2 copies.
Oh, girl.
Such a bad confession. But
girl, you better go do that.
I know, that's my homework now. But my pick would be The Great Divorce. It's
yes,
a book that,
so good.
I will. My goal in life is to teach that in a university or in seminary.
Do it.
Because of what you just said, Kimberly, and you named that so clearly, that you don't have to label something as holy and Christian for it to have holiness.
Yes.
And Christ. And I think that you just stated that so well. So, Kimberly, I am so grateful for your courage.
Oh, I'm grateful for you.
And your refusal to collapse into easy answers. You remind us that Jesus doesn't save from a distance. He moves towards us, and he crosses into our vulnerabilities, and he meets us at the well. Thank you for meeting me here. You always will be my favorite.
I love you. I love you. And honestly, I hope that our listeners were really inspired and touched, but I also hope that they can feel the love that we have for each other.
Absolutely.
As well. I deeply respect you.
I haven't been able to stop smiling the whole time.
This was great.
I love it so much. Oh, thank you, Kimberly. Hey, listeners. And before we let you go, here is a special invitation from Kimberly.
Hey friends, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Mariana as we start and support her through her new podcast, Meet at the Well. But I wanted to invite you to something before I go. We were enjoying our conversation so much that we forgot to share about the Cultivate Retreat that is happening this June in Greenville, South Carolina, from June 19th to 21st. You can go to our website at thewaybacktourselves.com with the number 2 and click on store and grab your tickets now. We're going to have an amazing group of beautiful creatives. We're going to be hearing from Stephen Roach from Makers and Mystics and The Breath and the Clay, Amanda Held Elpelt, really well-known musician and writer. And also we're going to be hearing from our friends at Solemn Literary Press and the Clay Jar Review. And you'll also get to hear from wonderful people from our community, like Mariana, as we talk about belonging in the arts. And we can't wait to see you there.
Can't wait. Thanks so much, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Friends, if this conversation stirred something in you, if you feel the pull toward living in the in-between, you're not alone. Kimberly and I are here, and we are breaking barriers, not each other. Until next time, come thirsty.